How did a beautiful, talented 21-year-old model from Czech Republic find herself facing 10 years in a Pakistani jail after being caught with $1 million in heroin? Claiming to be the victim of a mule scam gone incredibly wrong, she is now out of jail speaking about life before getting caught, life in prison, and life post-release. It's an incredibly sad, tragic, and twisted story of the manipulation of Tereza Hluskova, a girl placed on a plane by someone she trusts, allegedly never knowing what was hidden inside of her luggage. Is she a victim or is she playing a victim? That's where I come in, and let's just break it all down. Hi guys, welcome or welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. It's so greatly appreciated. It truly, truly is. Before we get started, let me give you my usual disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes only. Please do not take what I say as fact. Please always do your own research and come to your own conclusions. Next, if you have not liked, subscribed, or commented yet, please consider doing so because it really helps me out. I really, really appreciate it. So, when Tereza was 19 years old, she was working in a factory in the Czech Republic and making next to no money at all. She had fake hair, fake lips, and fake nails. She was going to clubs quite often and wearing nothing more than a bra and a short skirt. She describes herself in those days as a bitch that was drinking, drugging, and sleeping around. After complaining about not being able to make ends meet, she was offered a job as an escort, flown out to Belgium and Sweden, and taken under the wing of a woman by the name of Sarah. The money was great, the foreign travel was amazing, but Tereza was forced to sleep with many, many men. She expressed concerns to Sarah about whether or not she was suitable for the job, and Sarah instructed her to go and have sex with her husband, so Tereza did as she was instructed. That probably should have been your very first red flag. She arrived at Sarah's villa high on drugs and alcohol, and she had sex with Sarah's 45-year-old husband. I'm guessing things went well for her that day because she changed her name to Jennifer and she accepted the job. She began relying on the drugs and alcohol to help her get through almost, if not every single client that she had. The following day after accepting the job, she was flown to Belgium to go to a bar where many sex workers would meet their clients. Tereza has said about her time as an escort, a sex worker does not enjoy sex because in order to survive, she has to switch to robot mode and work. Tereza walked into the bar that day wearing a black mini dress and high heels. All she knew at the time was that she was going there to meet a Turkish client by the name of Ludo. He had a mustache and he would be wearing red glasses. This meeting would turn out incredibly bad for her as she was beaten following the sex and then was suffocated. Thankfully, she survived the ordeal, but that's not to say that she came out unscathed. She decided to fight back by telling her PIMP what had happened to her, and let's just say he took care of it. After this, Tereza was told that she would be sent to the UK, where she would stay in Manchester and do some modeling while they arranged to obtain a visa for her. She was told that she'd be staying with a Pakistani man while she waits. From there, she would be flown to Paris and then to Pakistan. When she finally arrives in Pakistan, she describes it as a disaster. She says there's dirt scattered everywhere and no sidewalks. When she arrives at the house that she's staying in, she discovers that the home has no electricity, which I don't think is really that uncommon over there. I feel like that's fairly a common thing that they have to deal with. This was a... She also claims that she didn't leave the house because she believed that all the women walking around in typical Islamic clothing were hospital patients. Really? Overall, she describes the photo shoot as a field with dirt and 4 big stones, but claims she just believed that they didn't have any money for a studio. The entire time she was in Pakistan, which was around 2 months, she waited for the photos, but they never arrived. On January 10th, 2018, Tereza was told that it was time to leave. She says that strangers approached her, put ornaments in her luggage, and took her to the airport. She was scheduled to fly to Abu Dhabi and then to Ireland. Tereza says that she knew she was doing something wrong, but she didn't know exactly what it was, and she never expected that it was drugs. 1 million euros, 9 kilograms, or 19 pounds worth of heroin, to be exact. Important to note that Pakistan shares a very large border with Afghanistan, which is the world's biggest illicit opium producer. Tereza was arrested at Lahore's Allama Iqbal International Airport. There is video footage of agents rummaging through her luggage, and when they finally find the stuff, Tereza could be seen placing her head into her hands. Trafficking is a serious offense in Pakistan, and arrests at airports are not uncommon whatsoever. Customs spokesperson told the media in regard to the man that she was staying with in Pakistan. Once he told Hluskova to visit Pakistan for modeling to promote products of a leading fashion brand, she accepted the offer on the promise of a handsome payment. On March 20th, 2019, Tereza was sentenced to 8 years and 8 months in Lahore's Khat Lakhpat jail, she was originally facing 10 years in prison. The prisons in Pakistan are described as one of the most overcrowded prisons in the world. According to the Human Rights Watch, there are cells that are designed for 3 people, but have as many as 15 people living in them at once. The prisoners are denied access to medicine and treatment for basic health needs, and lice, fleas, scabies, and skin disease, all of which are common there. In fact, 3 people died in the same month from illnesses, and they were all housed at the same jail that Tereza was at. Prison that is known for housing 4 times more than its 4,000 prisoner capacity. Tereza says that when she first arrived at the jail, she was terrified. Of course she was. She claims that the prisoners were jealous of her because she was white. They would make fun of her, taunt her, call her names, and she believed that her life was very much in danger when she was around them. I could believe that. I would absolutely believe that. Oh my God. Saying that had it not been for a Turkish lady that spoke English and took care of her, the outcome of her time there may have been very different. She also talks about how she saw a lot of violence against the other prisoners at the hands of the guards, but says she believes that being a foreigner was the only thing that saved her from this, claiming that Pakistani prisoners were beat by the guards all the time, but going on to say that because she was European, they feared that if they mistreated her, that she would report them to her embassy. Could this be true? Sure, it could. But then there's also that little thing called proving it. So I feel like I get what she's probably saying, and it could be true. I don't honestly know, but then do you have to prove something like that? Because from what I've seen, not personally, but from what I've seen, if it's between a guard and a prisoner and it's not on like a camera, I don't feel like they're gonna take the prisoner's side. But who knows? I don't know. Tereza also says that Pakistani ladies were in big cells with somewhere around 50 to 70 people, but that the foreigners were in small cells about 3 to 4 meters or 9 to 13 feet and had 2 to 3 of them inside. She makes it clear that the conditions for them were no better, though. She says that it was incredibly hot in the summer, and because she has a skin allergy, her whole body would become raw and start itching. Oh, God. Like, that makes me itchy. Just like, you know, when you say something and then it makes you, yeah. In the winter, it's freezing. As for spring and fall, those seasons don't exist. All that exists is super hot or super cold. In another bizarre twist, a man from Czech Republic was jailed for 3 years and 4 months for threatening terror on Pakistan if they didn't release Tereza. Another man, a 21-year-old by the name of Nikolai Ivanov, was found guilty of sending threats via email and text messages on behalf of Tereza to Pakistan TV and news websites. I don't know if she was the one behind, if she had anything to do with it. In November of 2021, after years of proclaiming that she did not know what was inside of her bag, Tereza would win her appeal and be released from prison after serving just 2 of her 8-year sentence. A judge said that the prosecution failed to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt and ordered that Tereza be released. After her release from prison, she went back home to Czech Republic and she was welcomed back by her family with open arms. She says that at first her family was devastated. Of course they were. Their daughter is in another country, is in jail for smuggling a whole hell of a lot of heroin. And she's an escort and, you know, doing nude photo shoots. So I could imagine that they'd be a little upset. But that they very soon came around and they actually paid for her lawyers, spoke with the embassy for her, gave her money for commissary, and paid for her to fly back home to them. Because at the end of the day, that's their child. You don't ever turn your back on your child, no matter what. Today, Tereza says that she's a normal girl working a normal job, serving beer, making coffee, and feeding lunch to customers. She has a wonderful boyfriend, makes an honest living, and no longer needs to have expensive items and holidays. Lastly, and maybe most impressive of all, Tereza is happy that her past played out the way that it did, believing that if it hadn't played out this way, that she would be dead, either from an OD or at the hands of one of her clients. And I would say she's probably not too far off. She says that everyone makes mistakes, and before people can judge you, they must know you. I actually couldn't agree with her more, and I really, truly wish her the best rest of her life. Instead of making this video so short, I decided to go on Reddit and look around a little bit, and there are actually more stories on Reddit on this topic. So I have not read these stories. I am blind reacting to them with you guys right now. Okay. This is my ex-husband's best friend pissed off the cartel, and now they have threatened to show up to our apartment where myself and our small child live. My ex-husband and I have been separated for over a year now, after his second attempt to get back together again, which happened to be because he had a severe coke addiction. He was hiding and paying with our rent money. He was also emotionally and mentally abused in the months prior to me moving out and being officially done. Constantly gaslighting me, tearing me down, using my mental health against me, etc. I consequently had been living with my best friend and her family after I moved out. But after she was diagnosed with cancer, we decided it was best I moved out. I had nowhere else to go, so I'm back at my ex's house, sleeping in our son's bed for the time being. During the separation a little over a year ago, my ex-husband's best friend moved into the second bedroom of this apartment to help with rent. I've never liked this friend because he's an addict beyond repair and is constantly making fucked up choices while taking zero accountability or remorse for how it affects others. This is also the friend that my husband did a hallucinogen with while I was out of town, and he was the sole caretaker of our son. They both took something that wasn't what they thought it was, and it was bad. I only found out about what happened when I had a gut feeling and looked through my ex's phone, where he had talked extensively about what happened to several friends. All this to say, this friend absolutely sucks, and I've hated him for the entire 10 years I have been with known my ex. Yesterday, I was making dinner for my 5-year-old when his friend called me into his bedroom. He shut the door and pulled out a G-gun and said that if anyone knocked on the door, to cock it and carry it before I answered. He showed me how to shoot, and I've never shot a gun in my entire 25 years of being a human. He admitted he's been a mule for a cartel for a long time, and that because he's on probation for drugs right now, he's too hot to take that risk. But his higher ups are not happy with that. Apparently, they mentioned our address down to the apartment number as a place they could find him if he continued to not comply. He told me if I did shoot and kill a man to drag his body into the apartment and wait to call the police until I've called him first. I start sobbing. I'm so fucking scared. I am recovering from 2 back-to-back surgeries and am alone in the house all day with our child. My ex-husband was freaked out enough that he told me I needed to take our son and evacuate. So today I'm driving 10 hours to stay at indefinitely so we can be safe until this is solved or blows over. I'm also fucking bitter and angry with my ex-husband. Despite all the dangerous, stupid, and self-centered, self-sabotaging this friend has done and been for 10 years now, my ex, who I thought was the love of my life, chose his friend and his coke over his family. I wouldn't be in the situation right now if he hadn't destroyed our family. And it just hurts. He has brought all of this on us. It's not fair. It's not. I just needed to vent, and I'm definitely going back to therapy at this rate. If you made it this far, thanks for reading. I realize some people may think this is fake. I wish it was. Actually, I didn't feel that this was fake. And sometimes I question if they're fake or not. I did not feel she was fake. My entire life feels like one big joke. If you all ever knew the shit I've been through. I am safe and out of the apartment. I brought all my valuables with me. Good. And basically left nothing important behind. I'm reading every single comment and weighing my next few steps. My friend is completely moving out tomorrow and supposedly feels very bad about it. No, the friend is completely moving out tomorrow and supposedly feels very bad about it. I don't know about that. Does he really feel bad about anything ever? I mean, why did you move into a house with a baby there? My ex refuses to leave the apartment and says he'll be okay. Let's hope. Well, girl, I am fingers crossed for you. Just keep yourself safe and keep your baby safe. And be done. Can we wash our hands of him now? Can we wash our hands? Be done. Let's never see him again. Even, you know what? Let's just get our son a dad that he, the dad he deserves. And we'll just keep the other one. We'll keep the sperm donor over there. I grew up in a rough neighborhood. Rough neighborhoods are kind of funny based on what I've heard from other people with similar experiences. In that you tend to have a really polarized effect. You have your ghost neighbors, people that never talk to anyone and for all intents and purposes don't exist. You have your neighbors from hell and you have your awesome neighbors that you keep as close to you as possible because in that kind of setting you need to. The neighbor on either side of the house I grew up in was pretty good. On the right side was a ghost neighbor who eventually started talking to us and being pretty cool. And on the left were my godparents. Across the street was a family of meth heads. 2 doors down from them on the corner was a guy who cooked and sold meth. He had a network of users and sellers all down the street, and damn near one corner house at every intersection was involved with him. The guy was a fucking icon. People in the area called him a number of things. Tweaker Dan was one nickname, the white guy was another. He had a makeshift auto shop in his garage, and he worked on cars from around 5 a.m. until about midnight every day, loudly, punctuated by people coming and going from his house to buy meth or shoot the shit, whatever. Sometimes he would have loud arguments with people outside, and sometimes he would have gunfights with people he argued with. More often, when he went for his gun, people left. Dan rode his bike everywhere. He had a car and it worked, but he generally just rode his bike all over the place. Now, growing up, I just saw him as a shitty neighbor to be feared and avoided. The thing was, Tweaker Dan was actually a pretty friendly guy. He would wave to everyone, neighbors, anyone who lived in the neighborhood, anyone he recognized, really. It wasn't until I was older that I learned a little more about Dan and his operation because of some mutual friends I ended up knowing. Dan didn't just supply meth to the neighborhood users and sellers. Dan controlled a large amount of the local supply chain. There were 2 major gangs in the area, but our neighborhood fell directly in a kind of neutral area between their territories. One gang probably could have taken our neighborhood if they wanted to. They were big enough and powerful enough, but for Dan. Dan was their supplier. They knew him as the white guy, and part of their arrangement with him is that he sold to them, but they stayed the fuck out of the neighborhood. This was his arrangement with anyone affiliated that he sold to. He would sell to pretty much anyone, but if he dealt with you, you kept your shit out of his neighborhood. Don't shit where you live, sort of thing. Okay. Turns out this is also why he rode his bike everywhere and waved to everyone. Dan was keeping an eye on who came and went. He waved because he wanted you to know he was watching. It wasn't so much that he was being friendly, though he was, but he was communicating something very important. He was watching. To those of us that weren't involved with him, we didn't know. We didn't know about his rules, who he said was allowed to come and go, the arrangements he made that basically kept our neighborhood from getting worse as the city around us turned to shit. We only knew about his erratic and peculiar behavior, that he never slept, that he dealt drugs, and that he did them. A lot of the clean houses in the neighborhood vilified him, but it was always peculiar to see which houses were friendly with him, because it was not always who you expect. For a guy who had so much interaction with the meth heads, he was also friends with the prison guard, the family who lived a few doors down, my godfather, people you'd have thought would have avoided him. But they knew. Fuck knows how, but they did. I asked my godfather about it after I found out, and he said, yeah, he knew. He just didn't see it as something that should be talked about. So that's Tweaker Dan, one of the best and worst neighbors I've ever had. So somebody responds. I moved into a new apartment about 6 months ago, and I was next to this lady and her 3 young children. She befriended me, and I thought she was nice enough. We had a few drinks together, like once a week. Then I'd go home. We get along pretty well. And one night she asked me to watch her kids for a little bit and said she'd pay me. She said an hour. She turned up 4 hours later, pissed drunk, and didn't pay me. I figured I'd let it slide. I had her kids in bed, so I just left. She continually kept dropping her kids off on me and always came home annihilated. I got really sick of it and started not answering my door. A couple weeks later, she was having a party in the fucking hallway. I came back from class. She saw me and invited me over for a couple drinks. I figured I might as well. After a couple hours, she started snorting pills, pounding back more shots. while holding her infant. Everyone was passed out by this point or gone. She projectile vomited in the floor and almost dropped her baby and then passed out. Me or her kids couldn't wake her, so I fixed them something to eat, put them in bed, and went home. Several times over the following weeks this would happen, and then she started leaving her children alone. Mind you, they were 8, 5, and 3 months old. They would come knock on my door because they were hungry or scared. I've always fed them and let them sit in my living room. After a couple times of this happening, I got completely fed up. I had CPS on dial. I gave her 15 minutes to come home. She showed up and took her kids home. While I was at school one evening, my roommate texted me to inform me that she had busted in our apartment while she thought no one was there. Well, he was. I made her leave, and what do you know, $100 went missing from my house a few days before that. I guarantee it was her. A pair of my heels and a bunch of change was gone too. That night, when I came home, knock on the door. This time, she had left her kids alone for hours on end. We were done with this shit. My roommate called CPS and the police. The police showed up instantly and were furious. Oh, okay. Not with them. She had left her children alone. They had tried to cook, and there was broken glass all on the floor. The baby's diaper was on her so long that it was stuck to her. Oh my God. And there was evidence that she would put her hands on it. I told the police all that I'd seen over the past few months. They took our statements and waited for her to come home. She showed up miraculously after they got a hold of her baby daddy. Out the window, I saw her. She started getting violent with the police. They slammed her on the car and arrested her. Oh my God. One of the police came back upstairs and informed me that she stated I was supposed to be watching her kids. She wanted me to lie for her. I said absolutely not. Turns out she was drunk on arrival and had previous child neglect charges and a theft charge. She's been in jail since December. Her children are with their grandparents and very well taken care of. Sorry for the wall of texts. This bitch was a nightmare. I'm glad to be rid of her. Those poor babies. Alright guys, if you're still here, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you and I appreciate you so very much. Please like, subscribe, and comment if you haven't yet and you feel so inclined to, because it really helps me out. I really appreciate it. And until next time, stay safe out there.